Call this operations committee together, please. All is in attendance. I'll do the prayer, and then the Pledge of Allegiance will be done by Commissioner Chairman Wandale. So please stand. Oh, most gracious and heavenly Father, thank you so much for your Son, Jesus Christ, and many gifts of salvation that we get through that, Father God. Father God, I ask that you'll just bless this commission, these people that's here tonight, and all the residents of Anderson County, Father God, that you'll give the wisdom and knowledge, Father God, put forth the things that you know that we need in this county. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Salute. Pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then we have the approval of the agenda.
Motion approved.
Second. Motion second. Any changes?
Yes, I'd like to request to add an item, Torch's request for space in the Daniel Arthur building, please.
What was it? I couldn't hear.
Torch's request for space in the Daniel Arthur building.
Where do you want to take that up at?
Let's see. Brian can wait. Let's do it. Can we do it before Brian's? So it'd be.
Second the motion. Okay, we got a first and second, and that would be right after the approval of the agenda
Yes,
and
please.
appearance of citizens.
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we have the appearance of citizens, and we have Connie Reeves here. She would like to speak.
I'm coming for an update on the flood on Laurel Road. We lost our home February the 28th, and we were in a motel in Oak Ridge for 2 months. And it brought a bill up to $4,000, which we've paid a little bit at a time. But we're staying in a rental property right next to Burger King with my 3 little dogs, my husband, my son, and we want to go back home. Supposedly TVA had a meeting Friday with McNally, and he has not returned our call yet. But Bart Robinson, which is for TVA, has already admitted the guilt that they put on us, that they flooded us out. And we haven't heard anything, and we want to know something. We want to go back home. I've got an acre there, and it's not a flood area. I've got all the documentations. I've got an engineer report. I've got everything that can be said. I've got the records.
Ms. Reeves, what's your address?
Out on Laurel,
Yeah.
533 Laurel Road.
Okay.
But McNally has not returned the phone call.
Okay.
And he was supposed to call Friday after the meeting because they were supposed to talk about us as the first agenda and Bull Run as the second agenda.
Okay. All right. What I'll do is I'll reach out to Lieutenant Governor myself. He's usually really good about returning his phone calls, and I don't see most of the time how he returns his phone calls so fast as he does.
I know, he usually does, but we think it's because of all this other converse with that guy hanging himself and stuff.
You never know. But I'll reach out myself, and I've got your phone number, and I'll give you a call and see what I can find out. Or he may call you before, I get in touch with
Well, he may be busy, but he has been, keeping it in contact with us
Yeah.
because he's been right on it. And he said TVA would pay for it.
Okay.
But it's if, when, and, how. But he got the pictures. Bart
Yeah.
Robinson got the pictures too.
Well, I'm sure if the Lieutenant Governor is on it, he's going to.
And he got the pictures.
something going.
He's got everything.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming.
And I'll wait, and I'll hear from you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Has anybody got any comment? Next, Torch.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 501c3 Torch is requesting 2 rooms at the Daniel Arthur Building that were formerly rented by Montessori. Montessori had 3 rooms, and the Torch organization would like to rent 2 rooms from us. And Sheila Michael, the founder of Torch, is here to talk about her request.
Hello. Torch opened in 2013 as the only organization in Anderson County addressing the issue of homelessness. Since opening its doors, Torch has housed 361 families, or about 1,264 individuals. 86% of all families Torch houses retain their housing, securing success in school and at work while maintaining a strong sense of identity and self-worth and contributing to the community. In 2018, Torch ranked #1 in the state of Tennessee of all organizations receiving the Emergency Solution Grant to house the homeless. Torch also conducts the point-in-time count for Anderson County. That is a nationally mandated count of the homeless in each county for 1 week in January, identifying the number of homeless per county following the HUD definition of homelessness. In 2018, the count was 218 homeless, approximately 62 families. That same year, Tennessee ranked #2 in the U.S. of states with the highest number of unsheltered families with children. Rural homelessness is at an all-time high, particularly amongst families with small children. But we in Anderson County can address that and put an end to it. If we do that, we will be the first county in the United States of America to do so, and will become a model for all other counties in the country. Torch will do this, and we would love to have the county as a partner. Torch operates under the Emergency Solutions Grant coming from HUD to serve the homeless. Once a family is verified as homeless, Torch assists the family in finding affordable housing, pays first and last month's rent and utility connection fees. Torch then follows the family to ensure it is self-sufficient. The grant that makes that possible is a matching grant. So every dollar the Emergency Solution Grant gives us must be matched by community donation. In April, the Trinity Center, where Torch had office space, was sold, and we were notified we needed to move. I immediately began negotiating with the county for the former Montessori school space in the Emory Valley building. We have since left our former office space and are working mobily, working from the car, the same way many of our families live in their cars. Robertsville Baptist Church in Oak Ridge has given us temporary use of a classroom where we can keep our confidential files under lock and key. The space we are asking for at the Emory Valley building needs a lot of work. I don't know if you've seen it, but we have the volunteers and the donors available to make that happen. We're willing to negotiate rent, to pay more, or occupy less space. We are simply asking Anderson County to partner with Torch to end homelessness in our county by renting office space to us. The mission is to ensure that every person living in Anderson County, Tennessee, has a safe place to sleep at night, particularly families with children. And the vision is to end homelessness in Anderson County, Tennessee, and design a model that enables other rural counties in the U.S. to do the same. We are hoping you will partner with us.
All right. So Sheila, explain what would go on at that location for us, please.
Do you want? This is Andy Quinn, the executive director, so I'm going to let him take that question.
So we would set it up so that we can meet with clients that are homeless there. It would be, clients would come there to do an intake. And we would have a small area set aside where children could be, and then we'd have another small area where we keep food and things like that so that people could come in. When they do come in, they can get food. But that's going to be the main use of the area, is it gives us a place to sit down and meet with clients inside of an air-conditioned building. It gives people a place to cool down, and then it gives them a place to come and get, I guess, what you would call camping food, the type of food that you would eat if you were staying outside or in your car. But that's what we're currently doing right now that's what we were currently doing in the Trinity Center.
So just to be clear, nobody will be spending the night at that building?
No, nobody will be spending the night at that location. We've in the 5 years that we've been at the Trinity Center, and if you need, you can speak with the folks there. We've never had a problem with any of our clients being there. We were right next to the Ark, if you're familiar with it, with disabled children, and we were great neighbors. They were great neighbors to us. We especially like listening to the Christmas, like them preparing for Christmas in the choir. So we've never had a problem. Our clients have never had a problem with any of our neighbors or anything like that, and I don't expect there ever to be.
Could you tell so the general public knows what TORCH stands for?
It's the Trinity Outreach Center of Hope. When TORCH was originally started, it was started in that Trinity building. And so it was Trinity Out-Reach Center of Hope, so that it could spell TORCH.
I think there's some letters of support, too, from the other people that occupy the building.
Yes, Emory Valley Center and United Way are also in the Daniel Arthur building, and they are in full support of TORCH being in there also.
And then I want to ask a question, because we have a problem in the city of Rocky Top.
No, yeah.
And it's becoming even greater. And it's although we've got a lot of things against us now, we've even got more of a situation where people don't want to come downtown. They want to get as close to the interstate, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Is there any type of programs where you could help up there as well?
We do. We housed 8 families in Rocky Top in the last year. So we worked with 8 families and then housed them. What you're probably seeing, so I'm familiar with a lot of the folks that are homeless in Rocky Top. Some of them are chronically homeless with really bad drug problems and alcohol problems. Right. And there's 2 things interesting that I've noticed about Rocky Top. The first is that when you have people that are isolated in a place like Rocky Top, even if they have particular problems, that's where their friends and family are. That's where all of their connections are. So there are about 4 individuals that I'm sure if you drive down Main Street, you'll recognize. There were placements for those 4 individuals, but all of them were within an hour away from where they were familiar with, for better or for worse. So for instance, there's one individual there, and he does have drug and alcohol problems, but he knows Rocky Top. He knows where to go to get his food. He knows where to get his medications from. He knows where to get social support. And so getting him to leave Rocky Top and go to where these other supportive services are was really difficult. But when a family becomes homeless in Rocky Top, it's not as difficult, and we've had pretty good success with that. Typically, the way that we would work with them is if they contact us, we have a policy. We try really, really hard to ensure that no child sleeps outside in Anderson County. So if I go out to Rocky Top, and I've done this several times, if I go out to Rocky Top, I identify that there's a child that's sleeping in a tent or sleeping in a car, we'll usually try and put them in a hotel temporarily until we can find a fast placement for them. Usually that placement would be through what we call rapid rehousing. Mm-hmm. So what we would do is we would establish, what sort of, what would be a good housing placement? Is this person working or not working? If a person's working and they're making some money, we look around the area that they're working and we see if we can find a rental that's in their price range. Normally, you'd have to have a person that would need to save up for their deposit, first month's rent, cut the utilities on. That can be like $1,300. If you have a homeless family, they probably don't have that. So our idea is to try and pay that $1,300 ahead for them. Go ahead and get them into that place, and then for that first month, work real hard to figure out next month how are you going to pay it. And usually, if the family qualifies, we'll go up to 3 months helping them pay their rent, and then working with them trying to figure out how they're going to pay on that fourth month.
Have you ever met with the city council or anything in Rocky Top?
Not in the last 4 years. When I first came, I met with the police officers in the city and some of the folks from the city in Rocky Top, mostly police officers. But since then, I've just been extremely busy. So I don't think in the last 4 years I have. I think the last time was probably about 4 years ago.
Okay. Would you consider coming up there and just, talking about your program and
Sure,
letting
absolutely.
people know so we could do, we've got a Rocky Top newspaper up there. But
Okay.
that's a big issue now with the homeless and, hanging out the library all the time. And,
Yeah.
and so it's become a big issue. And if you would do that, I'd greatly appreciate that.
Not a problem. Not a problem at all.
Anything else?
I'd just like to say that Mrs. Asher with United Way solicited me when I was over there looking at the space. She said she welcomes and wants them there. And
Yeah. Naomi's great. We get along really well. Anderson County is really unique in that the nonprofits really gel well. I've worked in 4 different counties. I haven't found a place that worked as where all the agencies, different nonprofits work together as well as Anderson County, which always makes me feel really good about when I go out and I give a talk about we're going to be able to end homelessness. If there's any place that I feel like it can happen, it's Anderson County. When I say that, I'm not saying it. Everybody says their goal is to end homelessness, but when I look at statistics and I look at how many people are homeless, I really think that this is a place to do it. In fact, if we're lucky, you guys will hear an announcement in the next few months from HUD stating that our area hopefully is the first area to end veteran homelessness in East Tennessee. I'm hoping. So we're going back. We're checking to make sure we didn't miss anybody. But I think we had up to 9 veterans that were homeless about 4 months ago. In the last 4 months, HUD asked us to make a concentration, to concentrate specifically on veterans, and it moved way faster than we expected. So I really believe in that we can end homelessness in Anderson County.
Have you dealt with our Veterans Service, Leon Jaquette? Do you know Leon?
I don't think. Oh wait, I have before.
Okay.
I have before, but not usually. I usually work with folks at the VA. So there's a lady named Amy Jones, Tiffany Higginbotham, and then at the VOA there's a person named Clyde. So I have a connected group of folks that I work with at the Veterans Administration, but I don't recognize that name.
Okay, he works in this building.
Right.
Okay.
Did you make a motion?
I will. I don't know if there are more questions. I think.
Commissioner Meade.
Yeah, one of the things that I guess is just a concern that we had to figure our way around, because I'm very supportive of what you guys do, okay? But it's my impression that some of your clientele is not from the top of society. Some of them may be convicted felons that are now out of prison or whatever, on parole. And some of them may have criminal backgrounds that would prohibit them being in a place that is right next to a child care center, like the Emory Valley Center.
Right.
And there could be a liability to both you guys and the county when we put your organization with a school in the same building. How are you going to address this?
We have not. So like I said, we were next to ARC previously, and we've never had an issue with it. So we haven't necessarily had to address it because we've never had an issue with it. We've had people that have come in that have had felonies. Usually if we work with somebody who we know is a sex offender, we don't host them at the office. If they come in as a sex offender and they say, I'm a sex offender, we say, okay, we do the enrollment paperwork, but then we say, from now on, we're probably going to meet with you at the library or some other place like that. But So if somebody has a sex offender, if we identify that somebody's a sex offender, we will try and meet with them somewhere out in the community, but we'll still offer services.
So what
to
you're
them.
telling me, there is a process to handle that?
Yeah.
For sex offenders, there
That's
is.
what I was hoping you would say.
For other people with felonies, we just meet them where they're at. But for someone who's a sex offender, like I said, we'll enroll them at the center, but then we'll meet with them out in the community rather than there.
Okay.
Most of the time, they kind of know how it goes, so all we have to do is say, we have to do that because you're within a certain amount of.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to invite somebody there on a regular basis and then realize that you were actually contributing to them committing a fairly serious crime under their conditions.
Yeah.
Jay, do you think that kind of covers that? I mean, I haven't had a chance to really talk to you about this.
There's no way to guarantee that. A couple comments. We can't control who visits United Way or Emory Valley Center for that. Now, as you've got a memo in front of you on the liability issue, we need to make sure that every one of our business invitees, those are the people with the leases, understand what Torch is, and what they do, and what their clientele is. And a couple of other alternatives you may have is that you may want to put some physical barriers like accordion gates across that hall, or ask Torch to use the exterior door instead of the inside hallway door that connects with Emory Valley Center. Those are a few things that you can think of, and Roger may have some other ones if you're inclined to pass this. But we're going to have to rely on the Torch administration heavily on this. And you want to allow those people in our building and around those kids that we have there. And, you know the parameters of it, and we're going to ask that you take a strong look at those individuals that are coming in that school. But,
Could I say something? I wish I had brought the questionnaire that is the very first thing a client does, the questions the client answers. All of those questions are on that questionnaire. So we immediately know whether any issue like that, mental illness, any alcohol, drug addiction, having been convicted of a crime, a sex offender, a veteran, we know everything about them, and then have a protocol for handling that.
No.
Okay, do you have a written protocol, or is it just something you developed and you've done? It would probably be useful for the county if you actually had a protocol that said, once these people are identified, they're handled this way. Do you have something like that?
The protocol that we use is the HUD protocol, and they instruct us how to do that.
Okay, so there's already an established process.
Yes, and see, we rank #1 in
Yeah.
the state using that grant. So we're doing it right.
Yeah. Well, talking to these people is not something that you uniquely do.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, yeah.
I'd be willing to write something in our policies and procedures that states what I just told you, because there's no written standard that says that when we meet with somebody who's a sex offender, we enroll them and then meet with them outside from that point on. But I'd be willing to add it in the policies and procedures.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that had been addressed and it was up front. Thank you.
No, that's understandable.
Comments?
Before you go along, before you make any kind of decision, I have talked with Travis Solomon, which is State Fire Marshal in Oak Ridge, Arnold Blackwell. Like I said, I don't know if anybody, if y'all have met with them, they want to be in on this before we do anything. Just like the separation between General Sessions to the court and Emory Valley, we had some issues there. I sent out an email, I think I sent it to Phil and Jay. There has to be a meeting before Anderson County makes a decision.
Well, and that's what happens whenever you rent a space. Like when Trinity offered us the space, we had to meet with the fire marshal before it could be approved. So we're just waiting for the opportunity to do that. But I have all of his contact information, and I will include both of you in the email that I send out asking for a meeting.
Commissioner Jameson, did you want to speak?
I wanted to ask a question. You mentioned that there's 2 or 3 other organizations have space there.
Yes.
Are they rent payers?
Yes.
The second thing is, Are you endorsing and going to make a motion that we welcome these people?
That's my intention.
Okay. Do you have an amount for rent thought about, or is that
I
that's
will
premature?
not be getting involved in the contract negotiations. I have a personal opinion, but it doesn't, this is not the appropriate thing for me to do, is to place a dollar figure.
Okay,
I
thank
don't
you.
think so anyway.
Any other questions or comments?
All right, well, let me make a motion then to approve the process to begin contract negotiations for a lease in the Daniel Arthur Building, pending. Do you need to talk to Fire Marshal before we would go into a I mean, I don't know the process.
If you approved that the process begins,
Yes.
then meeting with the fire marshal is part of the process.
Okay.
So if you say, yes, the process can begin, then tomorrow I get in touch with Mr. Solomon.
Okay, then I will make the motion to approve the process beginning for Torch to rent space in the Daniel Arthur Building. Then we'll come to contract terms if the fire marshal approves.
Second.
The motion, second, discussion on the motion, Commissioner Davis?
Second.
Okay.
Oh, Mayor.
I would like to talk just a little bit about the management of the building, and I want to say on the front end that I support what these folks do, and I actually serve on the Tennessee Valley Coalition to End Homelessness, and am a believer in that mission. But I want to talk to you all a little bit about this building, and I would be more of an advocate for giving these folks a donation to go lease space in the community than enter into another agreement with another organization in the building when we do have a court there. And this isn't anything about Torch, it's not anything about anybody else who would be here tonight. But until we can come up with a better management plan, if you'll recall, I brought this issue to you about a year ago, and looking back at the General Sessions Court in that facility when it was on Oak Ridge Turnpike, we had an escapee from that court, and that escapee went over and barged into Dr. Horton's dental office. All the patients had to flee that building, and the Oak Ridge SWAT team had to come and surround that building where there was a standoff for a while, and Jay may remember that particular occasion. I say that because we had an escapee at the DARC building not long ago. And this individual climbed into the roof, and Roger did have to do the repairs. Now, we can get into an argument whether that should have happened or should not have happened. But when I brought this issue up to you before, my greatest fear as a manager is that we are operating a court with United Way, with Emory Valley Center, and we have nothing because of the fire situation but a push door separating those two. So now we're going to look at adding a third organization with another entrance. We don't have a real presence from a management standpoint at that building. Here, we do. We're all here. We all know what's going on. There, we do not. We have a lot of vacant area. I've met with ESG. They've been working for the last several months on a plan, and they want to bring you a plan. We're looking at the Jolly Building, doing some upgrades there, some upgrades at the courthouse, and then the goal is to bring you all some ideas. If you all want to do this, we will manage it. But I do want to stress and caution you about the liability and the possible risks. No one wants to come up here And I have heard from multiple individuals who have concerns, but no one wants to come up here from a political standpoint because it looks horrible that you're saying you don't want a homeless organization in there. That's not, and that's why I'm being clear, that's not what it's about. Tennessee Valley for the Tennessee Valley Coalition now has a presence right here in Clinton. They've moved their headquarters from Knoxville to our community. So if we do go down this path, I hope that you will allow some type of early out, but I'm also cautioning you from a standpoint, you're now adding more individuals to the facility, and it's just making me nervous from an occupancy standpoint. So that's my only caution. If you want to do an early out and then you agree to some of ESG's ideas and we get a better handle on how we're going to deal with that building. But we continue to kind of deal with this over the last several years, a room at a time, an issue at a time. It's a boiler, let's put $60,000 into that. We know we have the roof looming over our heads. Roger can speak to you about the other issues, but we keep just nibbling at this, and I really would like us to develop some type of global strategy for that facility if we desire to keep it for the long haul. So.
Commissioner Meade?
Well, one of the things I want to point out is that the fact that the court is there, that means that there's armed security and screening of everybody that enters during the time the courts are in process, right?
Only on one side.
On the side with the court, yeah, okay. But people that can enter the court all have to be screened, and regardless, it's just like it is here in the courthouse, it's a Class C felony for anyone that isn't specifically authorized to have any kind of weapon anywhere in that building during the time courts are prior. You understand that, right? I mean, a pocket knife is a Class E felony in that building while court's in progress. We can discuss whether that's a good idea or not. That's not their whole discussion. But criminals have a tendency to go places where there aren't armed security in being monitored as they come through the door. So I think a lot of your concerns are kind of counterbalanced by the fact that the court itself is very secure. There are armed deputies and bailiffs there all the time that they're in operation, and that side gets locked up, I think, when it's in the evening. You can't, they lock the doors on the normal entrance, and the other doors only open going out of the court, right? No, you can't just walk in?
No, in Terry's defense, there's just exactly what I was saying earlier. To access the general session or the general sessions to court side, it's a panic bar. And there's got a little buzzard on it that keeps you from walking in there. Yes, there's guards at the far end of the building. Yeah. Which you have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's four more doors of access is the lower end of the Henry Valley Center.
But they're all alarmed, so any entry would. No. They can go into the courtroom without going through?
Courtroom, you can get into the main corridor. There's 2 halls.
Oh, yeah, the main corridor of the building.
But I'm saying
yes.
There's nothing to separate you from the court system except for a panic bar. And the reason we had to do that was because of Henry Valley and the separation of the kids. So you still have to have fire egress to get out. And there's a couple of classrooms that's close to the courtroom system or court system that you can go out of, and you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
To exit the building. But as far as that, and that was exactly what I was saying as far as meeting with the fire marshals before y'all make any kind of decision. You're standing up here, we're going to have to build separation walls and a bunch of this other stuff. It's not worth it to us as Anderson County. I mean, like I said, I'm not knocking nothing.
But right now we don't know what there's going to be the requirement. It may be that what we have is perfectly fine.
It could be great, or it could be just absolutely no.
So that can all be addressed when it's looked at. Thank you.
Mr. Creasy.
Yeah, I'm fully support, and I think that we can make it work, that the buildings, it may need a new roof. Someone said the other day that it didn't, and somebody else said it did, I think at the budget meeting. But Emory Valley Center, from what I understand, is going to move from that building and away from these offices. They're going to relocate in the little red building that we gave them here a few years ago. And they're in the process of remodeling that, as far as I know, at this moment, and expect to complete in the fall of
Before the end of the year.
before the end of the year. So we're moving slowly, and I'd like to move fast enough for Sheila and for Trinity, Torch. And Trinity, by the way, was named after the church that I attended for 40-some years. I wished I'd have bought the building when it was for sale. If I had, you would be in there free. But I'm for it. I think the kids are going to be moving away from this office, from the court, away from us. I think the fire marshal will probably be positive about that move. And so I fully support it.
Commissioner White and then the mayor.
Well, I don't know exactly what I want to say, but I'm against this. I have rental property in Oak Ridge, and had it for several years. I bought them to make money, but I hadn't made a lot of money off of them yet. But the time to get rid of a bad tenant is before you rent the building. I don't see nothing but problems with having these folks in this building. I think it ought to be somewhere in the middle of Oak Ridge in a commercial setting to where that there's not any residential homes. In this section of Emory Valley, we've got right across the road from Emory Valley, right to the south of that, there is some real nice residential homes. You know, about 3 or 4 years ago, we allowed the city to come in there and build this big septic tank looking thing right on our prime property. We gave the city the permit to build this septic tank's what I call it, and they agreed to put all kinds of murals on it and put a burn around it and plant trees to where you could hide it. If you go down Emory Valley, they ain't nothing to that. All you see is this big septic tank sitting there. So we've not done those people in that particular area justice, I don't think. This daycare center at the Emory Valley, the court system, I think we're going to step into something here that will be hard for us to. We think the mayor said something about it wouldn't be politically correct to deny this or something. She said something similar to that. What'll be bad is a year or 2 years down the road that this commission has to evict them. Now that's when it'll be bad. So the time to correct this, guys, is right now and not permit this to happen. Thank you.
I'd like to comment in support of this motion. I'm very familiar with Torch. It's the only program, I think it's the only program in Anderson County that provides services for homeless people. I think you had over 300 people that they provided housing for this past year. It is rated #1 in Tennessee for organizations receiving grants for homelessness. I know Ms. Michael, I know the staff that they have, and I know that they do an outstanding job. I think any protocol that we establish or any requirements for safety in that building, management, that they will follow through and make sure that that takes place. So I'd just like to, again, support this motion. Thank you.
Mayor?
If it's okay, I would like Roger to be able to be a part of the negotiation process. We did discuss if the lease did occur, but putting their offices instead over by the United Way so that we, or at least being responsible about the entrances and we're not opening up a third access way to the building and to that corridor. So if we could be a part of that discussion and Roger could work on that, I think from a safety standpoint, that would probably be a good move. And there's already a bathroom over there that is partially modified, not fully ADA compliant, but would meet the needs. If we could be part of that discussion.
Mr. McCain.
Okay, if I understand the motion, it's to just begin the process. There'll be a lease brought back to us, and then at that time, we can determine whether or not we have the right to cancel with 30 days written notice, and they have the same right to leave with 30 days notice. That's something we normally put in most of our leases, but we're not approving a lease here tonight. We're only recommending to the commission that we allow the process to begin, negotiations, and then, may nothing come of it. But at the same time, we need to be able to start the negotiation and see what it's going to cost. And I agree with the mayor. Roger needs to be involved from day one. That building's his responsibility, so just wanted to make that plain. I think that, we're not actually leasing anything tonight.
Andy, you would want to, is that all right?
Just come to the podium.
If there's a question, one of the things that I thought as I was listening that I did want to bring up is that we have, one of the reasons that we're pushing for this property, one of the reasons that we held for it is strategically, I thought about some of the questions, some of the things that you guys are thinking about. And this was the property in comparison with probably about I looked at probably about 7 other properties. I know some of the board members had looked at other properties. We even had one property that we were really seriously considering, but we kept coming back to this one because strategically it made the most sense. And particularly those rooms, because we would be able to have our clients come and enter in directly through the doors from the backside into the Montessori school without having to go through the whole building in order to get to us. They'd be able to come directly into our office. They wouldn't have access to the rest of the building unless we gave them access because there's a door right there. So we could keep people inside of that main office. The way we're going to do it is the Montessori school is split up into two rooms. Both of them have outside access. One room is going to be the room where we primarily meet with clients, and then the other is going to be office and file storage. That's the way I have it in my head. So the rest of the building, there isn't any reason for people to be in that part of the building. In fact, there's an isolated bathroom right there in that area too. The other reason strategically is because we're constantly driving people to get their IDs, to get their birth certificates and things like that. So we're right there in an area where we have easy access to that. ADFAC is nearby. The ecumenical storehouse is nearby. So a lot of the other services that we access, a lot of our other partners in the community are right in that area. And like I said, because of the easy access right in the back of the building and the sides of the space, that's why we kept coming back to this one. If we needed to look for another property, we would look for one. But just to let you know, we had considered several other properties. I had considered about 7 other properties and kept coming back to this one because of the location and because of the access that I felt like we could give clients, but keeping them out of the rest of the building. So I guess that's what I wanted to say.
Anything else?
No, nothing else for me.
Okay. And the motion is just to approve the process of it getting started?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next,
I noticed the rescue squad chief is here.
Did you want to add something, Sheila, before you? Okay.
You were motioning for me.
No, I just wanted to make sure you were finished. All right, thank you.
Was there a referral for them to be here tonight to talk about resolution that we had about the fire trucks or something? Was there a
Yeah.
recommendation?
Well, no, actually,
I thought there was a referral from the Budget Committee or something, or maybe Jay had said that we would have to modify the resolution if we cut the amount that they were requesting or whatever.
Yeah, I did say that, Mr. McCain, so I think that motion died, didn't it?
Now, I think that the Budget Committee recommended cutting the amount that went to the fire, to the rescue squad.
Commissioner Scott.
And I noticed there's,
I thought that your motion died up there. It died.
so the $256,000 is still available for the rescue squad in this.
Modified it to $132,500 for this year.
And that includes the truck.
They don't get a truck, but the funds.
and they don't get a fire truck because they're not a,
Right.
yeah. But it was the fund. So it was modified to 132 for this year.
Well, I think,
My understanding of what happened is that Robbie recommended you split the allocation like you had done in previous years. So where you were not funding the full allotment, you were doing it to where it was,
Like
when the
we have
clock
been
ticked
doing.
over from June 30th to July 1, they could go ahead and engage in the purchasing process, but then the full funds, it took 2 fiscal years to get the full funds. So my understanding was that that was cut back in half to go back to the previous process, how it'd been split into 2 separate years.
okay, but the amount the rescue squad's going to get is not just one
I think
half.
that would take modification of the fire truck resolution
And
if
that's
you
what
wanted
Jay
to.
had said, and, you know,
Yeah.
I know they're here tonight. I see some of them here. Chief Allen's here, and I didn't know if, you know, if they were aware of what had happened, and I wasn't for sure what happened. I remember the amount of 132,000 or something, but
Well, Chief Allen's
If
at
that-
most of our meetings.
if that's, if they're still going to get the same amount that the other 9 departments got, you know, then I guess there's no need for them to be here, but I think that they might have understood that the amount of money had been cut also. So.
You want to speak, TA, or you want to come up front and speak? Yeah.
For those that don't know you, my name's Terry Allen. I've been the chief of the Anderson County Rescue Squad for about 14 years now. And this came to my attention on the funding and stuff of the truck. And it was my understanding that it was going to just be cut in half. We was only going to get $130-something thousand. And my rescue truck that they're speccing out right now is going to be in the neighborhood of $260-some thousand. With that being said, we'll get a lot of equipment probably on the trucks that some of the fire departments can't afford to get simply because their trucks is expensive and much bigger. But ours is built just as well, and we have to carry quite a bit of specialty equipment. We're the only rescue squad in this county. With that being said, as long as I've been chief and been seen as chief, I have never had anybody lay out here in this county and die because we did not answer a call. Now, my situation with people showing up on scene and stuff is just like your fire departments all around this county. I don't put a penny in none of these guys' pockets. And they leave their homes and their families and come out and answer what calls they can. Probably around 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, on up till 4, 5, 6 in the evening. If we get calls, we're slacking on people. So it's the fire departments, big time. But with that being said, this is where we need to come in and work together. Excuse me. We need to come in and work together. I can make one phone call if I have to. The rescue squad's a little bit different than your local fire departments. And we're sanctioned pretty much through TARS, Tennessee Association of Rescue Squads, and our training is through them. And I can make one phone call, and if we have something in this county that there's a kid missing, elderly person missing, whatever it may be, I can call my TARS representative, and he will get on the phone and call every county that's in our region, which we're Region 2. And I'll get 200 or 300 people in here if need be. Same way we worked a drowning this week in Campbell County. And there was quite a few people showed up on that. But already this year, we've done run just to date. Just to give you a little bit of what we're up against at the squad is we've done run motor vehicle accidents 133. Windrock calls 19 with 4 fatalities. Mutual aid, this is going to other counties coming to us and helping us. So far, 6. Public assist, 4. That's where we go out. People will lock their car keys up, and we'll try to help them get them out. Sometimes it goes into kids locked in the cars too. So, fortunately, that's a very low number. That's the service calls. Is that? I've just had 2 of those. EMS assist, 16. Areas of the calls, Andersonville, we've answered 54 total calls so far in Andersonville.
Hey, TA, because it wasn't on the agenda.
I'm sorry?
Your discussion wasn't on the agenda, so we're not prepared to give you 3 minutes, but that's
Okay.
pretty close.
Okay.
So that's just how we do it.
Yeah.
So, but I think Robert is wanting to know if y'all expected to be on here. But I'm sure, I understand what your situation is, but it's not, operations committee.
Right. I apologize.
To take that. Oh, that's okay. I mean, that's good because you got your 3 minutes. But, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't mean to cut you off because you're all from my neighborhood.
No, business is business.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no problem with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's some good information.
It
is. And I'm glad that we
If you'll
got it
take and give me
straightened
a
out.
copy of that, I'll send it out. Yeah, I'll get it to somebody and send it out via email.
But I'm just glad to see that they're going to be able to get a truck, instead of half one.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, brother.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I got a question, since we brought it up. What is the overall budget for the rescue squad? I'm trying to find it. Mayor, do you have that by chance? And or TA, do you know what roughly your overall budget is? How much money you get a year? 27.5, or is it more?
Yeah, it has varied. Last couple of years, 27.5 for now.
I mean, from what I heard briefly from you, is that your need was maybe more in the way of providing training for your people and things of that nature. I guess what I'm trying to say, TA, is for me to sit here when the budget's $27,500 and then go out and buy a $260 whatever $1,000 piece of equipment when you just indicated that you're having a hard time keeping people. So I guess what I'm saying is I'd rather the money be used to strengthen the rescue squad versus go buy some expensive piece of equipment, which I know can be used. But how many people can drive it? How many people can use it? I mean, I guess that's where I'm coming from. Now, the rest of the commissioners can have a different thought, and that's fine. But I'm just trying to understand what can strengthen the rescue squad. Because it seems to me, no disrespect, you already said it. We'll use volunteer fire departments as an example. They are going down. there's not as many people volunteering anymore, and people just don't have the time. So I thank each and every one of you that are serving. And I mean that. You might not think that because I'm not for a $265,000 piece of equipment. But what I said was, I'd rather see, Mr. Chairman, that money go into the rescue squad, be used in a way to strengthen the rescue squad. I've got trouble with us running out and get a brand new $260,000 piece of equipment. So that's just one commissioner, and since we were talking about it, I want to be very clear, because I'm sure you got feedback, well, Commissioner Wandell don't want to give us no money. That's not the case. Commissioner Wandell doesn't want to spend $265,000 on a piece of equipment at this time, based on the budget we have. But the good news is we're going into meetings tomorrow, and hopefully we'll find more money, and maybe that I'd like to hear from you later, and we can't do it tonight, but call me, email me, and just let me know what your thoughts are, you and your squad, on what you think it could be used for in addition to, okay? I'm not trying to tell you how to run the rescue. I have no clue on how to run a rescue squad. But I know you fellas have been on these crashes. You were just the other day, as you mentioned, so I appreciate that. So that's all I wanted to say, Mr. Chairman. And I just would like for us to look at those funds and help strengthen TA and his crew. That's what I'd like to see.
And what we can do is put this on the operations agenda next month. And the whole purpose of the agenda is so the public knows what's going on. So, they can come or tune in, for specifics. And we've had this situation come before, and not have somebody, put it on the agenda for discussion. So everybody's kind of prepared. But, there's no disrespect whatsoever, but that's just our procedures. But if you would, come back and the more I think that you can come and speak about the rescue squad and the needs of the rescue squad, and you're getting out in public so you can get some support, more support from the public. Because nobody thinks about you till they need you.
True.
Same way with the volunteer fire departments. Yep.
Tim, I got a question. Would you be able to forward your latest 990 to us so we could see? I know you're a 501c3, and I'm on the United Way fund panel distribution, and you haven't been applying for grants from United Way, and I'm just wondering what you guys are doing to raise money as a 501c3.
On the 990, I'll have to get somebody who knows more about that part of the stuff. I'm operations chief. I'm not a secretary. I will.
Just come on back up, TA, because I think somebody else got another question.
Thank you. I'm not secretary, so you're getting in some stuff there that I'm not too familiar with.
Okay.
Lynn Chilcote, she was a real blessing to us. She always took care of all that stuff. We didn't want for nothing. I will see what I can do. I will do my best to try to get that for you. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Meade.
I just want to make a brief comment. I've been a Blount County Commissioner for 9 years now. And yes, we do have problems getting volunteers for volunteer fire departments, for rescue squads, okay? Now, honestly, my district, being in Oak Ridge, we don't use volunteer fire departments, and we don't use the rescue squad much in the city of Oak Ridge. But I still think that it's pretty vital that we have those kind of services available across the county. But I do believe, based upon what I've seen in this last 9 years, is that a major reason that we have problem getting volunteers for the fire departments and for the rescue squads is because these guys are constantly working under conditions where we will not provide them with the funding and the equipment and the training that's necessary for them to do their jobs. And so when you get to a point where you feel like you're trying as hard as you can, you're giving your time for free, you're putting your life at stake in some cases, and then you're still not getting this, you're still having to buy all your own equipment and pay for everything and pay for your own gas and everything else. You start to feel like you're not very well appreciated, and so those people just go away, and it's hard to attract new people. I think we need to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Anything else? All right, we'll move on. Thank you, TA, and thank you all for coming for your support. IT Director Brian Young.
Good evening, everyone. I have a couple items for tonight. I have I had spoken Budget Committee about the BCTI payments that have basically that we're in onus to take care of for the third and fourth quarters. If you look at the sheets I gave you on the third and fourth quarter 2019 renewals, basically Miss Cindy with BCTI has gave me a rundown of third and fourth. She also explained the first quarter is around 1,000. She hasn't given me yet specific paperwork on the first and second quarters of our phone system. But as I was explaining the budget, we bought this phone system in 2014 with a $500,000 bond. From what I understand, that bond is coming, it's finished. There's a couple more payments Karen explained to me, Karen Holbrook in finance, and then that whole process is completed. I've asked around, tried to dig up the information on any plans and procedures for moving forward after that had been put into place, and I don't see any, I can't find anything how to proceed. So what I'm here for this evening is to lay down some type of process that Karen and I, as Robbie has asked that Karen and I keep control of this and watch over it, over the phone budgets. Basically, we do need to set something in motion here that funds these fees yearly. This is a yearly fee that will be coming up every year. We had put this in the bond originally, those 5 years worth of renewals for these. So all of that was paid for originally with the original purchase. So what we have now is basically, I need guidance on how to get these paid for. We're looking
Jerry?
at...
Hold on. I'm sorry.
No, no worries.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, no problem. But that leaves us with, if you look at the page 3 of 4, that's our total. Those aren't small numbers, and that's required to keep this system online, our phone system, and also as a result of the phone system, all of our phones are the primary feed for the computers in the county. So it's not for without doing this, unless we have another plan of moving forward with another vendor or changing systems. I've talked to Jerry White in Budget Committee about, I don't think that at this time is a good idea. We have just paid for this system. I don't think it's for anybody's advantage to leave it once we just paid for it. It isn't ailing or broken. It's just now getting to where it's actually doing what it was designed to do. I've spent a great deal of time making sure that is the case, and at this point I would like to see at least we move forward with another year, and then as we go and the dust settles, we can, if something needs to change next year, we can look at it at that point. But as it stands, this is the phone system we have, and this is what it takes to keep it running. On a separate matter, which is to do with this first issue, we have the EMS switch issue, which this same phone system, every department, not every department, but a great majority of the departments that aren't in this building have a switch that links to that system. Last month, Nathan Sweet's office was hit by a near lightning strike that burned out his primary switch that feeds his phones and his internet. From the courthouse to there, it's how it all interlinks. He felt like when we reached out, we got the quotes to replace the equipment, and that's on the sheet that says the EMS switch. It's $2,687.23. That is an issue that, not just a budget matter, but this is to Nathan and his point of view, which he spoke to Karen about in this email, that he doesn't feel like that should be his onus to pay for that. That was a county purchase done by a bond. It's all inclusive to the entire county, and it's not separate to an individual department. So I'm once again faced with, how do I get this paid for? So I have two items here, not primarily budget, but more operational, because I don't think they've ever been set forward into a plan. So I'm basically here to ask for, how do I proceed with these? Do I go back to budget and ask for this money? Is this, I really just need guidance.
The disbursement of money comes from Budget Committee.
Yes, sir.
And I think myself, that'd be the proper place to go to ask for the money.
Okay. on the money side.
If you're asking for a procedure on whether or not that we think that this is county-owned or owned by department, I think we could probably take that up.
That's one of the main issues here is EMS and what to do with that switch. They currently have a loaner in place. BCTI had brought one of their guys down. We put a loaner in place, and that's how they're operating. The EMS would not be operating without that loaner in place. BCTI has asked me now a couple of times to get their loaner back, and they're being patient, but I do need to do something with that matter. So procedurally, that's why I'm here, and I had went to budget, and then I wanted to come here to you all to see what I do with procedures with this switch issue.
So I guess it's up to us to decide whether it's a county issue or EMS issue. Josh, or Commissioner Anderson? It's good. Very good.
Is there any kind of, in the agreement with BCTI as far as insurance or warranty or something for something like a near lightning strike? Right?
There's warranty on a defect in the product, but there's not for an actual incident like this. Now, our county has insurance. I spoke to HR. They ran the numbers. They're processing this through our insurer as a, I guess, as a loss. But our deductible is $2,500. That leaves me with, the same situation. I have no way to pay for this. And so basically, Nathan doesn't want to pay. I definitely don't have the funds to pay for this, which that'll come down the road. I want to talk about that later. But yeah.
Does EMS have their own IT code line?
As far as like data processing?
Equipment?
I don't believe.
Okay.
I really don't know.
All
As
right.
far as, we didn't go into that discussion because he didn't want to, Nathan didn't want to from the start address this. As far as we talked about it, we discussed it, and I see Nathan's point of view. Karen and I were talking about it. This could happen to anyone. It could happen to any department. But that's really why I'm here. I don't want to make that shot call on this. It's not mine to make, I don't believe, so.
Commissioner Meade?
Well, I think one of the considerations is if we don't take this in as a county thing, that the county provides all this as a service to the departments, and we therefore would take care of something like a storm loss, we would have to allocate, the budget would have to allocate to everybody enough money to have it there just in case they have a loss. I think it makes more sense to keep it central. So I would be in favor of recommending that it be this kind of a service and this kind of equipment that's actually managed by our IT organization be covered by the county centrally, instead of if something breaks in the clerk's office or something breaks in EMS or something breaks, in Annette's office, that we have to figure out who's going to pay for it. I think it makes more sense the county eventually pays for it anyhow. It isn't like we're avoiding a cost. The cost is there. There's no question it's got to be done. But if we keep it centralized, then it can kind of be coordinated through Brian.
I want to add here that this is something that Robbie, Karen, and I, since Natalie and I were approaching you all down the road. I think she had already initially touched on this before she had left about consolidating all the accounts into one code, into 307, which we already had. I had talked to Libby last week, and she explained back in the past that's the way it was. And she explained that as a result of the cell phones and the later technology, pagers, cell phones, devices, iPads, as the county progressed in time, those became different fees for different offices. So this office had a different bill for their cell phones and that one, and then the long distance was the other issue that drove them to separate into separate departments on the building. When I came here in 2016, what I walked into was that Karen would spend a good deal of time going through, and the budgets that they all had funded their phones, and then Karen would go through and separate each fee that she got from AT&T and the vendors to each department, and work great deals of time figuring what percentage was this department, what percentage was that department. I seen it as a complete loss of time and labor. If we centralize these codes, we're all using these phones, we're all using these computers. Natalie and I were in that same opinion, and like I said, we had got some motion with you all to centralize them and to stop putting them into the codes for the departments. Now, I think to the most degree, that's already started happening. Karen has basically emptied last year's budget of their last year's monies that were put into those budgets for the telephones. She pulled out and moved into that code to fund some of the stuff that was happening. So, as an example, we've had it in the past where it was centralized. Over the last 6 months, we've virtually, or more than that, almost the last year, we've virtually been running in a centralized phone and
So
billing
that would
for
be
it.
your recommendation?
That's what I would wholly recommend. It gives Karen and I the ability to work with this a lot quicker. We don't have to involve the departments. It comes down to we can make the determinations, move forward, and be done with it, instead of having to pull money from this account and this account and this account to equal what gets paid anyway. We're all paying it anyway. So that's how I see it, but that's...
Commissioner McCain?
Yeah. This is money we're talking about now that's not in anybody's budget, right?
Well, it funds 307, but in the past we were funding 307 from pulling out of all the other departments because they independently were funded to fund 307.
But nobody anticipated this lightning strike.
Not on this situation. I mean, the lightning can happen anywhere, but
Right.
I mean...
And that's, Mr. Chairman, that's the whole purpose of having the rainy day fund. I would suggest that you go to budget and ask for the money from the budget committee, that it be appropriated out of our undesignated fund balance, and that it be consolidated all under one department. I agree, it's hard to determine what percentage is used by this department or what,
Yeah, and our long distance has all been basically, we've broken that now. We have a block of time. So with this new package I put in last year, we're not doing long distance like we did before. It's modernized. The packages are now up to date and current with today's standards instead of where they were from quite a few years back. We were paying long distance fees like in the 80s.
Well, I agree that it's kind of an emergency item that needs to go to budget, and I would suggest that you go there. I don't think we have any authority to make a motion or to appropriate money, but I would suggest that you go to budget and request the money to be appropriated into your department, and that it be consolidated, all of them be consolidated.
Well, into the 307, yes. That's, yeah.
Commissioner Creasy, was you done?
Yeah.
And I agree that someone just mentioned the centralized phone system ought to be centralized under one code, one budget, and under IT department. I think that's appropriate, and I make that motion.
Have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? And this is centralized, we're not granting you any money, it's just that's all in one thing.
Just so we're working
All in
307.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all.
May I make another comment?
Yes.
And I discussed briefly with Brian, lightning has always been my enemy. I've always worked in communications and radio towers and computers, and it's my greatest enemy forever. We've made a lot of progress in lightning protection and grounding systems, and especially since cell phones come to market. They have it, the cell phone people have it down pat. The grounding rules and the engineering for that is just way out there now. And I mentioned to Brian that maybe he ought to look at putting something in the budget to hire one of these electricians or electrical companies that has familiarity with cell phone grounding and grounding systems, and take a look at surveying some of our buildings and seeing if we need protection.
Yes, Jerry, I know Lewis Electric, we had talked about working with them, and you had worked with them in the past. I know that the building where Nathan's is, now here in this building, we've got a whole different setup. Our equipment's on serious amounts of grounding, and the main system is in no windows and in the middle of the building. But where Nathan was at, that switch is literally in a room on sheetrock without grounding proper, and that's where I would like to see, as far as I got to get quotes, I'm not there yet, but some of these buildings probably, it would do a good job to have them checked.
Yeah.
I agree with Jerry. I've seen most of I'm not saying I have been to every one of the installs and the demarcation points of all of the installations, and most of them are in a little better shape. Nathan, his building, where it was in the back by the water, where all the water comes in, I guess I don't know where it was prior to me being here, how the main switch is not in the tech room. The back of the back of the building is where all of his tech equipment, except that one switch. I'm assuming it was there prior, probably the switch before the phone system resided there, so that's why it ended up there. It's not the ideal location for it, as I spoke with Jerry. I would like to see it at the back of the building around that equipment that's made to ground. But what we can do without a major building rewire is run grounding in there. Have Lewis or a vendor come in and ground that equipment to that structure. Right. I definitely agree with Jerry on that.
Commissioner Wanda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, just quickly, I don't want to get any more debate or anything, but what you mentioned we borrowed money from a bond?
From what I'm understanding, this was prior to me here, but I think it was 2014. It was either a $400,000 or $500,000 bond that was made to get this phone system in place and all the equipment across the county.
It was a lease purchase, but under the comptroller's regulations, it's considered a debt instrument because you're basically owning the equipment and it's a financing mechanism. So it all came through commission and the comptroller had to get all that documentation. So, because on your audit books, it has to appear as, it's a lease instrument, but it's really a debt instrument until you own it all and pay for it. So
I'm just curious. I mean, I got some information on the P cards recently, and I know last 3 months there's been some pretty heavy payments through the P card, and I was just wondering if it was for these funds. So, I mean, we can look into it later, but I mean, again, this is a need for a finance director or something to get in the house and move forward, and I just caught my attention, and I think we're up to 1.3 million now on the P cards. So, and a lot of it was the last 3 months of 2018. I think it was 79,000, 69,000, 49,000, somewhere in there. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll get to that, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
I will say this. Karen Holbrook explained, I think the payment is $9,700 a month that we have been, and there's 2 more. I don't know if that's...
I would guess that maybe the payments weren't made, and again, I don't know, and maybe we had to catch up a bunch real quick, and we'll see. But the good news is we got $8,700 in interest payment from the P card. That's good.
And one thing I'll add to this, because I think I might have said something in EMS, and then I'll get out of y'all's way, or not EMS, but in budget. The monies that we have saved from switching the phone vendors and the stuff around, Karen right now has given me a number, and I don't have that sheet in front of me. I remember the main number was $75,000. We have caused a savings of $75,000 from what we had, if the phone system had not been changed, is where we are now. So I think this $19,000 on this that I'll come to budget on the 3rd and 4th quarters is something that's, it'll be washed out in our savings, but we do have to pay it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Chair.
Any other discussion? Next, we're going to have...
Chair?
Yes.
Just my concern is it sounds like what you told us that the funding of the telephone system that's needed every year, that there's not actually a line item in our budget to do that because of the way that it had been done in the past, and then now that needs to be adopted because clearly we're going to want phones every year.
I'm assuming you will.
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't have any authority to do that, but isn't that part of what he has to ask the budget committee?
If I remember.
There needs to be a line item that funds telephones every year.
Well, if I remember correctly, because I remember taking this up in 2014, this agreement that we had funded all that.
Yeah.
The agreement is like a lease purchase type plan.
But now that's coming to an end, so we need to have a substitute line item.
Right.
Yeah.
$400 a year.
Yes. And the budget chairman's here, so he knows what you're needing.
Yeah, we've had a good discussion already. Any other questions?
Next item, Mr. Chairman.
The next item was Ethics Committee guidelines, and Tim Parrott spoke with him earlier, and they have not had their meeting yet. They were supposed to have met and came back and made a what their proposals were, but their meeting is on the 21st of this month at 4 o'clock, and he indicated earlier that he would be at operations next month.
Who is that?
Tim Parrott. He's the chairman of that committee now. Ethics Committee.
Oh.
Yeah, they were coming to give a presentation. We talked about it last
I
month.
was on some other world.
Yeah, we talked about it last month, and they were coming, him and Tim Shelton. I think they both, spoke. Then, but they have not met. They meet on the 21st of this month, and they'll
Okay,
be
gotcha.
prepared for next month. Does anybody need a break?
No, we need the heat turned up. I'm
Okay.
freezing to death.
Mayor Frank.
I'll try to make this a lightning round, so you don't have to go to break. The first item, we did have a unveiling. I know many of you were there for the unveiling of architectural designs for proposed shelter. Using the donations that I have to give former Commissioner Robin Belaski the lion's share of the credit on that. She raised funds, and we engaged Blankenship and Partners, LLC. And some of their projects include McGee Tyson Airport, UT Boathouse, UT Cancer Institute, Blount County Library, Thompson Bowling Arena renovation, McKenzie Lawson Athletic Center, Volunteer Landing, among others. So they're a great architectural firm. And we did have an event, and just no taxpayer money involved in that. But this is just... of course, without any landscaping. This is the entrance and the side, and then this is the design flow, and it's approximately 10,000 square feet, and it is designed with workflow completely in mind. The whole front of the house is for staff, adoptions, a public space. The back, there would be two entrances, so this entrance would be for adoptions and volunteers and viewing rooms and counselors, and then there would be a separate entrance with an overhang that is for intake or reclaim, and then you get into the business of the operation. So what I am here asking for in an official capacity is I would like your authorization for me to be able to pursue grant processes, grants that do not require matching. If there is anything that would ever require matching, I would come back to you. But I'm asking for authorization to pursue grants that would require no match. And then also I would like to engage in forming a committee for capital funds to raise capital for this project. But I would prefer to have authorization and not be out there on my own just acting independently. I would like you all to authorize that.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Have a motion second. Any discussion?
Mayor Lovett, who will own the facility?
Well, I mean, I would look for Anderson County to own it. We're already operating the facility now. I mean, we've proven that we can run an organization and get the community support, which I think is very important.
we're not coming back to you for tax dollars.
No, no.
I mean, I'll give you an example. I think there's very few times where we've actually bought bags of dog food. The community and the business community support that. Cat litter is the same way. Wet food is the same way. We just get a lot of materials from the community. And then we're working on a location that would have infrastructure here inside the city that would be donated, but I'm not quite ready to announce that yet because it needs to be official. So if that happens and we get donated space, I will come back and make that announcement to you as well. I have already talked to potential partners if we do go down this route about helping to finance if there are any additional staffing needs. I think we can get community support from other municipalities and jurisdictions.
So, and I appreciate you answering my next question. You haven't selected a location yet.
We do.
And you don't have to tell me.
Yeah.
So the location, would it be owned by the county potentially?
It would either be a transfer or it would be one of those 40, 50-year leases
Gotcha.
for $1.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mayor. I'll support it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The next item on the agenda, and I don't know how you would want to proceed with this, but this is a pretty big ask. So I'll break it to you gently. And I can't smile. I broke my
Nobody was going to notice that.
Nobody capture me on film on this one. It's going to get fixed tomorrow. What I would like, many of you are familiar with Clark Center Park, and it is owned by the federal government. And it is at the end of the Edgemore Road corridor there, Claxton community, it dead ends there, if you're familiar with that. DOE would like to divest itself. I have met on a couple of occasions with folks from GAO, and back in 2014, the city of Oak Ridge earnestly considered this, and the idea did not generate support. I think the city has looked at it a second time and does not have the support. But what I would like to do is maybe put together a small working group with a couple of commissioners or 3 commissioners and consider positioning ourselves to be in a place where we could accept ownership and then enter into an agreement with Legacy Parks Foundation. And they, I have had a couple of meetings with Carol Evans with Legacy Parks. And if you all will go online and look up Shelby Farms, that is a park in Memphis, what they have done there is the county owns the land, but then they put it in the hands of another organization to manage and to fundraise. If we would consider accepting ownership, then we could enter into a memorandum of understanding with Legacy Parks, and they could, for instance, apply for a Blue Cross Blue Shield grant. They have $7 million in grants. Carol had already reached out to them. It was too quick to responsibly address all the unknowns. But if we had a small group, working group, to see about doing something like this for the county, we would be targeting August of next year, or August 2020. The reason I like this idea is that that park has not been updated, and it would be nice with what we have going on with the Greenway plans, both with TVA on the north end of the county, the Greenway plans that we're doing with Oak Ridge. It would fit nicely in with what our ultimate plans are for Blockhouse Valley, the Greenway around Milton Lake. I think there is a lot of potential here, and it would, in my opinion, Legacy Parks is has a track record of success with everything they have done in Knoxville, and they could design something that is lower cost in terms of maintenance, more passive, more in line with what people use parks for today, which are trails and that type of facility. But I would just, if you'll do a little bit of research on Shelby Farms, I also, this is something I've worked on for a long time in terms of, is this something we could do as a county to improve that? What would it mean long-term? I think that would require some discussion as a working group. Would it be something if ultimately we help an organization develop a nonprofit to do the permanent management? Would we enter into an agreement with the state and maybe other partners? All of those are truly unknowns that could be worked out, but I think it is definitely worth a look and an effort.
So what's your recommendation?
Well, if anyone would like to work with me, I think it would take a partnership with some commissioners to develop what this idea would look like. I've already talked to Legacy Parks a few times, and I got from the mayor in Shelby County the MOU and what that looks like with the Shelby Farms Conservancy. So I have a little bit of an outline, but I think in terms of addressing all the unknowns and variables, I think it's going to take a little bit of work in a working group to make some recommendations.
So are you asking for a subcommittee or something like that?
Yes, sir.
Is any of this land in a municipality?
I think
It's in
Oak Ridge, yes, and they don't.
It's DOE, I think, kind of owns the property, but it's in the city of Oak Ridge. It's in my district. I know, I'm very familiar with the park.
Yeah.
I was also on the working with DOE Site-Specific Advisory Board when there was a bunch of discussions about trying to turn that over to the city. So I'd be willing to be involved in working on that project.
Okay.
One other question. Do you have any idea why they're not interested in this endeavor?
I think it doesn't fit. I don't want to speak for them, and it's been probably a year since I had a discussion on why they don't want to. I think it doesn't fit with all of the park plans that they have. We could follow up again. I really can't recall, Commissioner Jameson, all of the, I mean, I pulled up some old agendas from 2014 when they officially looked at it. But they also may have been looking at it from basically taking it over and continuing using it as ball fields and things like that. And who knows? I mean, maybe there was political pressure to keep things the same. I think that would be a benefit of allowing a Legacy Parks organization to take ownership for several years. They could do what they have found is successful in their planning and their design in the region.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
I can address that just a little. 'Cause I was involved in some of those discussions back then. This is my impression that the city of Oak Ridge basically felt like, heck, DOE is running it, and all our people get to use it anyhow. Why do we need to buy it? You know, why do we need to take it over and pay for operating it? And so that was basically why Oak Ridge didn't do it. They just said, our people get to use it anyhow. I think the result has been that DOE has dramatically reduced its maintenance and care, and it started to deteriorate to some extent. You understand it has beach area, it has fishing areas, it has ball fields. There's quite a bit of stuff there, and so it's a real asset to the county. But we'd have to. Is there any chance maybe we go into? Is there some way that we in the city could partner?
there may be. I mean, that's what I would like to.
Those are the things we'd want to probably
Yeah.
address.
Yep.
So in a subcommittee, you want citizens and commissioners, or what would be your idea?
I haven't even fleshed that out yet. Before I took off with this, I didn't know if there would be any interest at all. I think if you look at the intergovernmental meeting that we had before here, there is a lot of interest in the community for parks and green spaces and trails and that kind of thing. And I think building upon that corridor, there's also the Life Development Center that is down in that area. I just think for growth in the county, it would be a big win if we can figure out how to make it all work.
So do you need to send it to that intergovernmental committee and for us to suggest it to go there?
I mean, I would just like to have maybe a couple of commissioners and maybe a couple of citizens would be a good thing.
Commissioner Anderson, you want to make a motion?
Being part of that.
All right, you want to make a motion to?
Okay.
Yeah, you got two that have agreed.
Yeah. Make a motion to form a subcommittee.
So moved.
Based on commissioners, a couple of commissioners and 2 citizens, that the mayor would choose the citizens and commissioners already.
Yes.
So that's your motion. In a second?
Second.
In a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved.
I'd like to make a comment about it. She was talking about it been maybe neglected a little bit, but when I was working at Y12, I served on a committee, ADA committee for Y12, and we surveyed it for ADA accessibility. I have no idea if they've ever done anything or not, but
They have not.
we
It needs
visited
to, yes.
everything and wrote up a report and submitted it, but
Yes.
that was about, let's see, I've been retired over 25 years, so it was over 25 years ago.
And I do know I've put in, a request, if something like this did happen, can we charge, for instance, for certain things? For instance, we charge camping at the Anderson County Park, and we use those revenues to continue the park operations. So those are things we would be looking at as well. I mean, of course, not charging an entrance fee, but could we do anything in terms of generating revenue there? So, but no, Commissioner Creasy, that work still needs to be done.
I wondered because I haven't been to that park since then.
The next item, just a real quick update. For you, there are 2 opportunities to go online and take a tour, a test drive, if you will, of OpenGov. There are 2 dates there. When you're online, I've done this as well, you're able to ask questions in real time. They can bring up new pages and show you things. In the packet I sent you, there is also a pricing sheet. I did make sure to clarify with him, we are not required to purchase any package. We can do one little area at a time, and I can't put my fingers on here. So for instance, if we just wanted to do the public portal where you have the dashboards for the commissioners and dashboards for the public that show operations and where the budgets are and real-time alerts and things like that, that's one cost. So that is operational performance, that's $22,882. So that is dashboards for every department. That is tracking of budgets, tracking of projects, performance metrics. Of course, a lot of that would depend on what you all would put in there. The departments themselves can receive targets, alerts, monitoring. Then you have management reporting for internal and external financial and non-financial reports that can be shared across the organization with the public or just internally, whatever you all choose. But anyhow, that's that. And I don't have any action on that. I just wanted to give you some of that information and answer any questions on that if you have it. There's actually 2 more things. The proclamation, if I could get a motion to approve. This is for the Clinton 12 commemorative walk that's going to take place on August 26th. And there is a proclamation attached if you would be willing to approve that.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the proclamation? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
And then if I may, I wanted to add something that's kind of, really just kind of an emergency add-on, if you all are interested. RJ Corman is discussing taking up the rail line from an area in Scott County through Anderson County. And I would like to be able to work with the law director on a resolution to bring to you to Monday's meeting. And I don't have anything tonight, I'm sorry, because this was kind of quickly, this all quickly happened where we were noticed. Tim Thompson from ACETA actually reached out to me and said the state was considering approving their request to abandon the lines. And I had some more information, I just can't find it in my stacks. I really would like to do a resolution to ask whatever, and I don't have who the final decision maker is yet, but I would like a resolution asking them to hold their decision until we can look at perhaps what it would take for the rail authority or some other organization to take over that line. That line would be of enormous benefit for tourism to our area. If we don't use it even for, rail, there are other communities that have used abandoned track for other tourist draws, whether it's sky bridges or things like that. But I would like, at least some time for tourism and some other folks to be able to look at this before we just have them rip that line up. So if you all would be willing to let me bring something back to Monday's full commission and ask the state to at least give us 30 days to assess that.
We worked on that for a couple of years, trying to get acceptance from RJ Corum to be able to use the passenger train over in Devonia into New River. And that was a big issue there for a while. And then we formed the rail authority.
Yes.
And what that rail authority does is kind of holds the purse string on grants and things like that, if I remember. But I think it's a good idea to do that, especially serving on the tourism board and looking at some of these rural tourism things that people do in other states. But these abandoned rails have been really good, especially like in our area of the county, Devonia and places like that. That would be a big draw.
Yeah. But if they go ahead and rip them up, then there's nothing.
They're gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why I would.
Irreversible, really.
Yes.
I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you all. That's all I have.
Do we have any new business come before this committee?
Not so much new business, old business, I guess, Mr. Chairman, is our special called meeting tomorrow, Tuesday the 13th, 3:30 p.m. in this room to finalize and hopefully a passage of the 2019-2020 budget. Just want to make that announcement. Tomorrow at 3:30 in this room.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for setting up these dates.
Oh, absolutely. And I do have one other date I'd like to mention. On Tuesday, August 20th, Roger and I are going to be meeting with ESG. And so we had hoped to have all this done for this operations committee, but they have tabulated every dollar we spend on utilities throughout the county, and they're going to be bringing a plan that would modernize some of our facilities and use savings in those utilities. And then what we've asked them to do on the DARC building is also try to give us some ideas of fair market rents, and if we're going to keep the facility, and maybe some things that we could do there if we are going to truly keep that as a county asset, what's the best way to manage it? How can we get the best use out of it and modernize that building as well? So,
one thing I want to bring up is that in the purchasing committee meeting today, that 205 Main Street, it's up to 356, is that correct? 352.
352 to the county.
Because the auction company, Bear Stevens and Jason Deal, has offered all their proceeds to bring that up. It was at 336, then they offered their share too. So that was just sent without a recommendation for a full commission to discuss. But that brings the amount up to 352.
Mr. Chairman, do we know what the property might be? Is it going to be developed, or has anyone heard? Or
I was actually at the auction and talked with the guy, and I think one of his clients may even be Cisco that we had talked about before, but he lives in Oak Ridge, and he is an entrepreneur as well and does investments. So he didn't say that he was going to use it for any particular thing other than maybe to resell it or what use. He didn't say for sure.
Thank you.
Either way, go back on the tax roll.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.